Greetings metalheads and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George and today I'm going to be reviewing this little article which I've just recently finished reading. This is from Paradise Lost. This is entitled The Lost and the Painless, and a regression of woe in 3 acts. So some lovely artwork there, almost like the patterns that you would see on monastic building floors, on the floor tiles. Really interesting, or maybe sort of stained glass windows. So Paradise Lost, if you're not familiar with Paradise Lost, they are a British band, one of the true pioneers of not just UK death metal, but also Death-Doom as well, and also Gothic metal. So they've kind of, across the years, they have changed massively. They've chopped between being an outright death metal band, to being a Death-Doom band, to a Gothic metal band, to almost having like electro elements, and just basically being a completely different entity altogether, like synth pop, very strange stuff, to then going back and being sort of Death-Doom and very Gothic as well. So Paradise Lost they've jumped around a lot, a huge amount of variation between their material. But this particular article, which is released in 2021, I should say, this was released on Peaceville Records, who the band Paradise Lost were signed to for their first 2 studio albums. And there's also some other material in there, but we'll get onto that in a moment. So they were with Peaceville for those first 2 albums. The first 2 albums being Lost Paradise, released in 1990, and Gothic in 1991. So only a year apart. Then we've also got the demo material contained in here as well. We've also got various other bits and pieces, but we'll get onto that in a moment. So, The Lost and the Painless. This is following on a series of different releases from different bands that we've had through Peaceville, where we get musical content. We've got a nice lot of discs contained in here. In total, we've got 6 CDs and 1 DVD, all housed within this nice book, giant book. And then in between, we have a whole lot of information. Basically, we've got the bio of Paradise Lost between the years of 1988, their inception, and 1991, pretty much. And it is divided into 3 sections covering the demo material through Lost Paradise and then Gothic as well. So Paradise Lost for me is a bit of a funny one, because I've been a fan of Paradise Lost for a while, definitely many years now. I got into them actually around the time, or just before the release of The Plague Within, and then was very, very big into that album. Actually, I think that's an absolutely outstanding album. I think that's a really good, dark, Gothic Death-Doom album, definitely. Really enjoyed that album a lot, as with the successor, Medusa. Thought that's an absolutely fantastic album as well. Really enjoyed that one. Obsidian, we've had the last album, and their sort of Live in Lockdown album, where we had, I think it was Live at the Mill. Then I sort of worked back, somewhere between Medusa and Obsidian. I worked backwards, picking up the essential albums, if you like. Albums like Draconian Times and Shades of God, and various other bits and pieces in between. I have not all of the Paradise Lost albums, but I have most of them. I am yet to get a copy of One Second Day, so that is on my list. However, I've had a bit of a funny relationship with them, because although I definitely think they're a great band and I do enjoy them, I haven't really gotten into them properly, where I've kind of connected all the dots, filled all the gaps, and put my attention to them. I've just kind of been a bit of a casual listener, if you like. But I was really interested just before Christmas last year, looking on the Peaceville Records web store. I saw this, and reading the bio about it, I didn't realise that their early material was outright sort of UK death metal. Old school death metal, but also the fact that Paradise Lost are heralded as being one of the pioneers of Death-Doom as well, and also, I guess, Gothic metal overall. I was really interested, and I thought, actually, this could be a really good starting point. You get the material, and also you get to know, you get the bio, basically. You get all the facts from the time. So I would say overall that this is definitely a good collector's piece. It's definitely an essential for any die-hard Paradise Lost fans, because you do get a lot of information between those years of 88 to 91. However, I wouldn't say that this is as good. This is just my opinion. I wouldn't say that this particular book release is as good as the My Dying Bride one that I have recently reviewed, Harvest of Dread, or the Dark Throne book, Black Death and Beyond. Those two were great, crammed full of sort of rare and unseen photographs, some good anecdotes, lots of input and sort of quotes from other people, some really good interviews with the bands, some really good stuff. What you do get here is you get a really cool foreword, if you like, from Cradle of Filth frontman Danny Filth, if I can find that at the front there. So you got a little piece from Danny about how Cradle of Filth and just himself in general was influenced by Paradise Lost. So that's really cool. Throughout, you've got lots of quotes from other notable figures from the scenes, such as Carl Willets from Bolt Thrower and Memoriam. You've also got Barney Greenway from Napalm Death. You've got Chris Reifert from Autopsy. You've got Fenres from Dark Throne. So you've got a lot of peers of note and status, putting in their opinion and telling their stories, their anecdotes about Paradise Lost between those years. You also get plenty of comment from frontman vocalist Nick Holmes. Very good vocalist, absolutely brilliant. You cannot fault his vocal capabilities. And of course, many notes from Greg McIntosh, lead guitarist of Paradise Lost. So I'm not going to tell too much of the tales that are contained within these pages, just because if you're really interested, then definitely it's something that you should read. But as I say, it does cover their inception. There's a lot of talk about how they kind of started to find their sound. There's lots of mention about the production, or the way that they approached producing the album, recording the albums as well. Really good stuff for that. It's really quite detailed, and it's good overview, if you like. Then it goes on to the whole story of Lost Paradise, which is a fantastic album. Lots of really quite cool information and anecdotes. Lots of info behind the scenes, little things like actually the recording of the guitars and the whole production of that. Really interesting. The story behind that very odd choice of album cover as well. We get that full information. And then the massive shift in sound and style between Lost Paradise and Gothic as well. That said, I think because it's covering effectively a 3 to 4 year period with the band, you don't really get as much information, or you don't make as much of a connection with the band or with those early years as you do when you're reading like the My Dying Bride book or the Dark Throne book, because those books cover the vast majority of those bands' catalogue, their entire career and history. So this is more like a historical account, if you like, stretching back to the late 80s into the early 90s. The other thing to also mention is that what makes those other books so good is that you've got a real variety of artwork, and you've got lots of, sort of posters, album cover artworks. You've got loads of photographs of the bands, the more sort of humorous ones as well. But in this book, you don't have a huge amount of variety of photographs. Not that you would necessarily buy this just for the photographs, but you've got essentially just lots of different shots from the same few photo shoots. So photography wise, it leaves a little bit to be desired, because you just get, although you do get a few things in here, like there's a little poster there, you just get a lot of pictures of the band from the same shoots, taking up quite a proportion of this book, in fact. As I say, there's a few shots, a few different things here and there, but not a huge amount of variation. So, pictures-wise, maybe they could have done a little bit better and dig a little bit deeper or further afield, get a few more different photographs or posters or bits of artwork, whatever. But I'm not going to critique that too much. That's a smaller point, if you like. So, the anecdotes, the stories, the bio, it's good. It's interesting stuff. It's very informative. And it's good to know a little bit of history, if you like, about early Paradise Lost, their inception through two of their most notable albums. Certainly Gothic being one of the biggest and most popular Paradise Lost albums, and Lost Paradise being an outright old school death metal essential. Absolutely fantastic stuff. So, information wise, this is definitely, or the book content, if you like, that is definitely something that will be really enjoyable for fans of Paradise Lost, outright fans of Paradise Lost, but to the more casual listener, probably wouldn't find that quite as interesting. But it is, I found it quite interesting, I found it quite enlightening to learn a little bit more about the band between those years. So we'll talk about some of the material then. As I mentioned, we've got 6 CDs and 1 DVD. So that's the disc content on the back there. Content-wise, I mean, or presentation-wise, you can't really fault it, but it's a really nicely presented article. But going back to the content, we've got disc 1 contains the demos. So it contains the Paradise Lost and the Frozen Illusion demos. So that is 1988 and 1989 respectively. Now those demos were massively influential. From reading this, it does sound as though the impact of those demos was quite massive. It inspired and influenced a lot of death metal bands and a lot of musicians to actually basically head in this direction, to follow the death metal path. Some great material though. Although it's old, although it's demo, it does sound really, really good. Certainly when we take tracks from favourites from the Paradise Lost demo, which consisted of Drown in Darkness, we had Internal Torment and Morbid Existence, and then from the Frozen Illusion demo of 1989, we had Paradise Lost, we had Internal Torment, again, different take on that track, and then Frozen Illusion. When you take some of those tracks, like Frozen Illusion, for example, or Paradise Lost, which is a Death-Doom masterpiece, or even Morbid Existence, it's great. It's primitive, but it's still well constructed and well executed Death-Doom. It's really good stuff. I would definitely say that material, that demo material, kind of shows a band that is definitely ahead of their time. Definitely ahead of the wave. Really, really good stuff. Certainly, if you like good old death metal, if you like early Bolt Thrower, if you like the post-grindcore sort of era, Napalm Death, if you like early Benediction, definitely you're gonna love that material. Which links us on very nicely to the 1990 Lost Paradise debut album. We've got the track list there. I would say, as in this book, or contained within this book, was actually the first time I've heard Lost Paradise. I was not familiar with the album. However, I would say that it is a brilliant album. I'm an old school death metal fan. I love old school death. I love Bolt Thrower. I love Carcass. I love Death, Cannibal Corpse, whatever. Obituary, you throw these names out there, but I love that sort of stuff. Absolutely. So Lost Paradise really does tick the boxes for me. Certainly with tracks like Deadly Inner Sense. Absolutely amazing. We've got a few inclusions of the tracks from the demos as well. such as Paradise Lost, Frozen Illusion, and we've got Internal Torment 2, different take on that. But elsewhere we've got Our Saviour, Rotting Misery, Breeding Fear. Absolutely brilliant stuff. What we do get at this point is a real show of Paradise Lost's doom elements really leaping into the foreground. Some of the tracks, particularly Our Saviour and Rotting Misery, those are Death-Doom masterpieces. Absolutely essential Death-Doom. You think Asphyx, they hadn't even released their first album by this point. That, for me, Asphyx sort of set the benchmark for Death-Doom, early Death-Doom. Paradise Lost were doing it before Asphyx. So just to sort of highlight and reiterate the influence of Paradise Lost, Death-Doom brilliance. Absolutely. Paradise Lost were doing something very new, very different. They were not quite reinventing the wheel, but they were brewing up an entirely new concoction. A whole different combination, not just death metal in the fast and raw and aggressive kind of sense. There are faster parts. There are certainly harsh and aggressive elements, but actually they were throwing in doom, the likes of St. Vitus, the likes of Trouble, Sabbath, whatever. They were throwing that in there with great effect. Absolutely brilliant. So I would say, if you love Death-Doom and you're not familiar with this, or if you just love death metal or doom metal and you're not quite sure if Death-Doom is your thing, check out Rotting Misery, check out Paradise Lost, check out Our Saviour. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Really, really, really good material. As I say, the book content, or the actual biographical, maybe that is a little bit limited, but the musical content here is, you can't really fault it. It's brilliant. It's certainly very satisfying stuff. So then we've got the third disc, which contains Gothic from 1991. Now, Gothic is a very different album. It's very different from Lost Paradise. It's definitely more, I'm going to say it's more experimental. It's very Gothic. It does contain a lot more of the goth elements than anything else. It's more goth than it is death metal, but it's more doom than it is death metal as well. So it's a little bit of a different one. I'm not going to say that it's a complete U-turn in sound and style, because some tracks, such as the second track, Dead Emotion, Rapture, the fourth track, and Silent, they are quite strongly rooted and firmly rooted in death metal or death doom as well. So you have got some material that would definitely appease the fans of the heavier or the more extreme end of the Paradise Lost spectrum. However, it's very interesting to read in this book that the release of Gothic and the sound of Gothic, although it's a big success, it really did turn a lot of heads. It turned a lot of people away from Paradise Lost, in fact. Some people were really upset with the change. Some people really couldn't get on board with it, whereas others absolutely loved it. But certainly those tracks like Dead Emotion and Rapture, they really just sort of carry on with the death doom. It sounds like Paradise Lost. It sounds like Paradise Lost of Lost Paradise. The opening title track, Gothic, is an absolute classic. It's a brilliant song. It really is. You've got the inclusion of female vocals, which is kind of one of the attributes that Gothic is really remembered for, or really known for. However, female vocals are not featured on every track and not prominently on the tracks that they are included on. They are most notable on the intro or the introductory track, the title track, and also I believe in The Painless or Silent, I can't quite remember, quite prominent female vocals there. I think it's more on The Painless. But it's good material. It's good material. Some of the tracks, such as Shattered, Eternal, Falling Forever, and I think The Painless as well, they are very Gothic. And I will admit, I do prefer the Lost Paradise album. And those particular songs I've just mentioned there, they really do contain a lot more prominent goth metal elements and attributes, which is a little bit lost on me at times. However, I can still appreciate it. Really good musicianship, As with the first album, those riffs on Lost Paradise, absolutely amazing. Gregor McIntosh, a fantastic guitarist. Even at that early stage, he was clearly, developing his skill and finding his feet. But by the time we get to Gothic, he's really quite an accomplished lead guitarist. Some really powerful lead guitars. Just like with Nick Holmes, his vocals are brilliant. On Lost Paradise, he sounds like a fantastic death metal vocalist. Strong, aggressive, snarling voice. With Gothic, he's got a little bit more variation in there. There's a little bit of a change, although it's kind of death vocals. He sounds rougher, gruffer, if you like. Pretty good though. So Gothic, my least favourite out of those two albums, but still, it's a very strong album. It's a very good album. It's an essential for anyone who likes goth metal or sort of dark atmospheric metal, depressive sort of metal as well. But also if you like Death-Doom, there are elements still contained within that album. So those are the two main studio albums and the demos. The disc 4 contains the Gothic EP from 1994. Now the Gothic EP, it's a little bit of a funny one because you've got Gothic mix, so you've got a remix version of Gothic. You've also got two tracks from the first album. You've got Rotting Misery and Breeding Fear. Different dub version, not really sure, but they do sound slightly different. Still sounds good to me. And then you've got the Painless mix as well. Some good material, just seems like a bit of a random inclusion in this book, I have to admit, but still good. You just get a slightly different take on some of the material there. Enjoyable enough, but definitely one for the fans, really, I must say. Then we get disc 5, which contains Live Death, live in Bradford, UK, 1989, which I will say, also on the same disc, we've also got the inclusion of Live in Liverpool, 1989 as well. That is a really good quality, actually, live recording, or live recordings. And it's also a really good sort of live overview or live summary of that early era of Paradise Lost, from the demos and up to Lost Paradise, the album. Really good stuff, actually. I would honestly say that the live recordings sound great, particularly of the Live in Bradford, the Live Death recording. It's great. Tracks like Deadly Inner Sense, Frozen Illusion, Our Saviour, Rotting Misery, they sound great, actually. They sound really, really good. It sounds like a raw, immersive Death-Doom performance. Absolutely brilliant. Cannot fault that live recording. It's really thoroughly enjoyable. Disc 6, we've got Live in Ludwigsburg, Germany, 1991. That sounds to me a lot more like a bit of a raw bootleg. I have listened to it, and it's definitely something that I would say is more aimed at and more for the enjoyment of more involved fans, if you like. If you're a real devoted Paradise Lost fan, then no doubt you'll really enjoy that Live in Ludwigsburg disc there, disc 6. It is, yeah, it's got a good set, definitely. You've got Dead Emotion, Gothic, Paradise Lost. Elsewhere we've got the Painless, Our Saviour, and Deadly Inner Sense. So you've got some really good material there. Some real favourites from those first two albums, but it does sound a bit scratchy. It's a bit, the power is lost, to be honest. Yeah, it's definitely more one for the diehard fans, I will say, but it's still enjoyable enough. And then we've got the DVD, which contains Live Death footage. We've also got On Tour with Autopsy in September 1990. We've got Lost Tapes 1991, and then Live in Berlin 1991 as well. So I have had a chance to look at the DVD and watch some of the footage. I've watched the Live Death recording and the On Tour with Autopsy. Haven't had a chance to look at the others yet. I would say Live Death, it's quite enjoyable footage because they're so young. Paradise Lost are so young. But it's surprisingly well shot and well executed for a very early, quite primitive death metal live concert DVD. It's good. I believe that these shots here are from that footage. I could be wrong, but that does look very familiar to what I have seen. A very young, youthful band. It's well shot, it's well executed, and they sound really good, actually. It's a good old school death metal show. If you like raw, energetic, old school death metal with a seriously doomy vibe, definitely check out the Live Death. I think you can actually get Live Death as a standalone release now, but if you get this, then you get the whole package. So yeah, those live material, or that live material from the Live Death, it's a great recording, I must say. It's quite enjoyable. It's a nice, entertaining watch. Definitely one where you grab a few pints, get yourself a couple of beers, and watch some old school death metal. What's not to like? So that concludes Paradise Lost, the Lost and the Painless. Overall, I would say the material, the music material here, with the likes of the demos, Lost Paradise and Gothic, and certainly the Live Death recordings, that's definitely worth it. Absolutely check them out. If you like Doom, if you like Death, if you like Paradise Lost, check out those albums. They are really good, really enjoyable. Certainly Lost Paradise, that one really ticks the boxes for me. And those demo material as well. Those couple of demos, really surprised at just how good they are. Really energetic, really quite advanced, quite ahead of the times, really. Old school death metal. The actual bio material, yeah, it's quite narrow. It's quite limited because it's a very short period of time. I should mention the fact that the actual book content is written by Nick Ruskell, who is a journalist, music journalist. I believe he's worked at Kerrang for many years. Not sure if he's still there, but he is also the vocalist and guitarist of Witch Sorrow as well. So small world indeed. But if you like Paradise Lost, if you like death metal, check it out. I would say overall this is a worthwhile purchase. Certainly an absolute essential if you're a Paradise Lost devotee. So there you have it. The Lost and the Painless. Paradise Lost. UK Death-Doom / Gothic / whatever the hell else they want to be. Legends. What are your thoughts and opinions on Paradise Lost? What are your thoughts and opinions on The Lost and the Painless? I'd be very interested to hear the thoughts and opinions of others. Thank you very much for watching, my friends. Do check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all the good heavy things. Take care. As always, stay heavy.